Hey, deserving listeners, Love is Blind Season 3. Let's rewatch for a second time, knowing what we know now, and see what comes out of my face as I watch.
I heard her, I listened. She wanted nothing to do with me. She didn't want me to call her, she didn't want me to pursue her, and I didn't have it in me. I was heartbroken because I really loved her. So it's like, hate me all you want. I know what I did. I know what I did.
No one hates you, Cole.
Dude.
Okay, you don't hate him, but you're certainly treating him negatively, whatever you want to call it, everything he says. Now, through their eyes, through Raven and Nancy's eyes and Alexa's eyes, I understand where the first time I saw this, I was a little confused, but really being in their shoes, I understand more where they're coming from.
I don't know. I just remember getting in the truck with my friends and being like, guys, that's not her. They were like, what do you mean? I was like, she's gonna text me. That's what I told them. I was like, I think she got like caught up in the moment or something of like the TV.
Yeah, I forgot about that moment too. That's interesting, and that's telling. And it sounds credible, right, that he would say that. For him to defend her and to say, no, that's not the way we were. I know because, you know, they spent a lot of time together, like 8 weeks or something, living together, constantly together. And he's like, that was completely out of the blue. It was very strange that she did that. No, she's going to contact me. We're friends. We're totally cool with each other. And she's not going to do that. And then when that didn't happen, she didn't contact him and say any of those things. It was strange to him. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Maybe some of you are just like, oh, Kirk is biased towards Cole. And maybe I am. I imagine that I probably am at least a little bit, given the way I see this scenario, I suppose. But I don't know. It sounds credible that he did that. And it says something, if it is true, that he would defend her even after all of that.
No one knew what I was going to say. I remember even texting my best friend. She's like, so you're still going to, like, people had known things that had happened. Like the trying to control what I ate and me changing my eating habits. People, a couple of my friends knew. They were COVID testing.
He did that?
Yeah, I forgot this part too. So she's claiming that, and I believe this, that she didn't tell her friends that she was going to say no, and she didn't tell her friends that she was going to have some speech at the altar. But she did tell her friends about her perspective, which you would do. I mean, if you were being treated that way, you would tell your friends, hopefully your support system, about it. And of course, the friends are going to talk amongst themselves. So when she did get him on the altar, blasted him on the altar, then yeah, it makes sense that you would clap in a situation like that, because to you, justice was served.
Little tiny oranges that fit in the palm of your hand. And he looked at me and he goes, are you gonna eat both of those? And I said, well, like, yeah, that's a serving. And he goes, well, we're going out to eat later. Like, maybe you should save your appetite.
Oh my God. I cannot believe.
Yeah, I'm not gonna go all over this again. My wife is actually, she was just asking me, she's like, why are you watching this season all over again? And I said, I don't care if no one cares. If no one is watching this right now, I don't care, because I just wanted to rewatch the season again for my own benefit, because it's an interesting season. There were a lot of revelations that happened at the reunion and afterwards, and so I wanted to rewatch it through those eyes. So, I don't know if anyone's watching this right now, but I definitely won't rewatch the cutie scene again and the reunion, this whole conversation again, because I've already done it once and then again. So I won't do it again. But yeah, so don't expect that to happen, because you can go back and watch me watch it twice.
That you would say that, Zay.
This is all working out so wonderfully in your favor because they did not use it.
Yeah, so I think that says a lot right there. I will point out a little bit of the reunion bits here, is that she is very convinced that the cutie scene, if presented, would absolutely demonstrate her points and her anger at him and her accusations of him. And if you're Zenith's friends, it'd be hard not to believe Zenith, right? It'd be because she's so convincing, and she's not wrong. The way she describes what happened is literally exactly what happened. But of course, the interpretation of it is the question mark.
I would not do it over if I could go back.
I have completely forgiven you, though. I don't want you to have another failed relationship. I want you to find your forever person. I want you to have exactly what you want. You do deserve that. I forgave you the moment I walked away from you at that altar. I don't hold anything against you. I don't.
Okay.
Yeah, we could take her word for it. It doesn't seem that way, but there's different definitions of forgiveness. The definition that I use in my practice is it is, well, let me actually look it up. So after looking at all the literature, not all literature, but a lot of the literature and the clinical literature around forgiveness and definitions, I defined it as an intentional process. So you do it intentionally, you do it willingly. An intentional process, a process, it's not something you just make a decision, it's usually like something you go through, that eventually results, I inserted that eventually, because the process of forgiveness will eventually lead to a decision. So it's very weird, but I felt like all these words are important, right? Because usually people say like that, well, forgiveness is forgetting, but forgiveness is not forgetting. Or they'll say forgiveness is pardoning or letting go. And it's like, well, no, that's just letting go. But I define forgiveness because really, the ending is the best bit. A decision to end one's negative attitudes and feelings. So if you really just boiled it down to its shortest definition, it's ending one's negative attitudes and feelings toward the transgressor, about the transgression. So has she decided to end her negative attitude and feeling toward him? You know, you could make an argument that she's made a case for that. It doesn't seem that way to me. It seems more like she is letting go and moving on, but she still absolutely has still decided to have negative attitudes and feelings towards him, and regarding the transgression, right? So that's how I define forgiveness, because the key, and among all the clinical literature, at least the commonality around the definition is you originally have a negative attitude and feeling towards the transgressor about the transgression, and then after forgiveness, you no longer have that feeling. And some people will say forgiveness is something that just happens, but generally speaking, especially for bigger transgressions, it's deciding to go down an intentional process to eventually decide to change your attitudes. It's not letting go, it's changing from negative to either neutral or even positive. You know, if your partner transgresses upon you, you don't hate your partner necessarily if it's a minor transgression, but you do have a negative feeling and attitude about your partner and or what they did. And once an apology happens, or sometimes you just go through a forgiveness process yourself, regardless of an apology happening or not, but ideally you get an apology, and then because of the apology going well and there's some goodwill, then you go down a process, and during the apology you might be going through that process, and then you eventually decide, okay, I'm going to let go, or not let go, I'm going to transform the negative feelings into neutral feelings or positive feelings, and I'm not going to have those negative feelings anymore about you and or what you did to me. I don't look fondly on what you did to me. I'm not happy about what you did to me, but it doesn't. I'm not going to consciously hold on to it. Might I still have some residual feelings about it? Yeah. You know, if someone does something really awful, you know, say your partner cheats on you, and it's a huge transgression. 20 years later, you have moments where that trauma pops back up again. So you might have still forgiven them, though, because you have, I guess the differentiation for me is that which you have control over. So we don't have a lot of control over our traumatic reaction or the negative associations we have with a transgression that happened to us. But we do have some control over our attitude and the sort of feelings we entertain as opposed to the feelings we try to, grow, meaning that, so say the cheating partner apologizes, there's a lot of repair, you go to therapy for 6 months, and during that process, you're going through a forgiveness process, and eventually you have a decision to end your negative attitude about the person. You're like, you know what? I forgive you, meaning that I no longer have negative feelings that I'm going to activate. I'm going to try to drum up, I guess you could argue that it's letting go of it, whatever you have conscious ability over. And also, I, generally speaking, have a positive feeling about you, and I'm willing to engage in our normal relationship vibe, which is one of goodness and love and nurturing and compassion. But 6 months from now, 6 years from now, 16 years from now, if I see you on your phone texting someone and it looks like you're cheating on me again, I'm going to have an upwelling of anxiety and I might get a little upset. That doesn't mean I haven't forgiven you, though. Anyway, so she claims that she's forgiven him, and we can take her word for it.
I don't regret you at all. I don't regret you at all. You really did teach me so much about myself, and there was no one else in this experiment that I would have done this with. There really wasn't. It was always Cole or bust, even when you were driving me crazy.
Yeah, rewatching this, it's hard. I just wish that someone could have been there to help the two of them through this, and that they just weren't on a reality TV show, so that there would be so much at stake in terms of who's the good one and who's the bad one. It just, kind of breaks my heart, really, for both of them. Because underneath her demeanor, I think, is a normal human being who's very vulnerable and very hurt and very sad and very unsure, even though she kind of comes across sometimes like she's not. I think she had to be that way in order to protect herself.
It wasn't that many towels.
It
what are you
was
talking
so
about?
many towels, but it's fine. It's past. But I don't regret you at all.
Okay.
I would do it again. I would do it again, knowing just the outcome, as long as I got to do it with you. I would. I really would.
I would do it again. I would do it again. Now, there's a possibility she's only saying these things because he's crying and she feels bad and she's provoked to try to take care of him. And if she could, she would take it back, but she just feels so bad for him that she's trying to take care of him, and there's a possibility of that. But there was that statement again of like, if I could go back and do it again, I would. And you're just like, well, what? That doesn't. But again, she's entitled to have her own attitude about that. Everyone can make their own choice about that. I'm not saying she's wrong for saying that, but it's just another example of how it doesn't line up necessarily with everything that we're hearing.
I didn't understand our wedding day. Like, it didn't make sense to me in any way. I was like, how do we get that from like everything you and I had gone through? And that's why I never texted you. Because I was just like, I'm gonna go bury myself in work and just not ever date anyone again, because that was hell.
Yeah. It's tempting to look at men and think, well, they'll bounce back, especially someone like Cole. He seems so easygoing, but you hear it. You hear the pain. You hear the suffering. You hear the protecting himself. You hear the damage done.
So I understand where you're coming from now, and I was somehow not seeing that I was doing those things.
I know you're sorry, but I forgave you a long time ago.
Why am I crying? Damn it.
Hey man, this is real stuff. I mean, this is life, and as we say to you guys at the very first day.
Yeah, so he's saying when I watch it, I'm like, what was the context? I think he's referring to the constant reference to Colleen. I think that's what he's referencing. And I think what he doesn't remember is drinking, one, and two, the producers asking them all various different questions. And because he talks in the interviews after the season, it's like everyone was being interviewed. It wasn't just me. Everyone was being interviewed and asked, what do you think about the other people? And I thought we were all supposed to be saying things along those lines, so I just kept saying it because now you could argue that he should know better to not say that because he's engaged to Zenith, but I think he's reacting. He's like, what? Because they would take a whole day and condense it down to just a few minutes, and if you just take the worst moments out of everything that someone is saying and it's played back for you, I could see that it would be alarming. But I think he might learn a thing or two. And I think hopefully he has. In the interviews, so in this moment, I thought, oh, maybe he really has grown. And I hope for everyone, I hope they can all learn something about themselves because it's an opportunity for that. But in subsequent interviews post-season, he doesn't seem to be talking along those lines anymore. But I can't know.
All right, let's do it. Thank you guys so much for watching.
Thanks for watching.
To our beautiful humans, we love you, and we'll see you next season.
Take care.
All right, well, like I said, I'm not going to rewatch it. It's been a journey, y'all. I have been watching this how many hours? And I've yammered for so long. And if you've watched even some of you, I think have watched all of them. So we've been on a journey together. It always feels interesting when there's this ending to a thing. There'll be a season 4 that I'll watch happily, because I thought this season, I would argue that this season might be the most interesting reality television I've ever watched. And I like the way it's edited. It's really condensed, and the way they did the cutie story at the end. It's like, oh, you think that 90 Day Fiance could learn from that as well, because they leave a lot on the editing floor as well. So you would think that, but then you wonder, oh, they're going to manipulate people, and they'll bait people, and then they'll blast them with a story. Like, I could imagine that becoming a whole monster that the producers try to recreate. I don't know, but I thought that this season was pretty interesting. And let me know what you think in the comment section about the journey overall, not just this episode, but what do you think about the journey that we've been on together? Summaries of the season, chat with each other about it. What did you think about my commentary overall? How did you learn about yourself, your relationships, that sort of thing? I'm curious. And everyone, please take care of yourself, take care of others, communicate well, cultivate relationships where you can trust other people to tell them when they are upsetting you. Take responsibility for your own issues. Have a question mark as to whether or not your interpretations are quote unquote accurate or not, because you deserve it. You really, really do.